Fluttershy's Garden by Hare Trinity. On a dark cloud sat a dark tavern, and in sat a lone griffin, drowning her sorrows. Her name was Gilda, and she just had an unpleasant experience in the pony settlement known as Ponyville.
So I told those dweebs that I didn't need them.
Gilda barked to the bartender and those around her, to anyone who would listen. At first, she had gotten a few enthusiastic replies of, "Yeah," and "Good for ya," but quickly they tired of her complaining and moved on.
Stupid ponies. Who needs them?
Gilda had bickered to herself, still grumpy. She had been humiliated in front of a crowd, and by none other than her childhood friend. At first, she'd been angry, and had thought out ways she was going to respond when her friend came to apologize. As minutes turned into hours, she realized that the apology wasn't coming. The initial plan had turned to bitterness, and she sought out the bar to take her mind off things. Her eyes fell upon the pool table. Gilda had been playing pool by herself for a while when a soft voice asked,
"You're taking your time with that drink, aren't you?"
Gilda looked around to see a cloaked figure addressing her. It was short in stature, and the sound of hooves against the wood sounded as it approached.
A pony, brilliant. So what if I am?
Gilda snapped back.
You just look like someone who could handle it better.
Gilda spat and turned to look backwards towards the table as she chalked her cue.
Not all of us are made of money.
She'd taken a lot of four-clawed discounts in her time, but she'd gotten into an argument earlier in the night, and now the bartender was watching her carefully.
Want to play a game against me?
Gilda snorted.
No dice, pony. Had enough of your sort today.
Well, I saw you cheating earlier in the card game. You know, for the money used on that drink. So I guess you have a choice. Either they find out, or we keep that information to ourselves and while away the evening over at the pool table. I think this way's easier, don't you?
At that, Gilda froze. She didn't really like the vibe she got from the stranger, but she also wasn't ready to be thrown out. After weighing up the two, she decided to let the pony have her game. It couldn't hurt, could it? Better than facing angry card players.
Okay, pony. A few games.
The cloaked figure gave a tinkling laugh and offered to buy Gilda another drink. At first she refused, but after the first pleasant game, during which the attentive figure let her rant about her day to her heart's content, she found herself starting to like the pony. She accepted one drink, then another, then another. Soon they were on their third game, and Gilda was on her fifth pint. She eyed the stranger blurrily, head spinning lightly. How strong was the stuff they had served in this tavern? Either way, there wasn't much she could make out of her new friend. Just a thick, dark cloak, the hood surrounding the face in darkness. She shrugged off the mystery and turned her attention back to the game. After all, she was getting free drinks. What more could she ask for? It was around those thoughts that Gilda had stumbled, barely catching herself on the table, as the cue clattered to the ground.
I think we've been playing too long.
Ugh.
Wow, can you get home like this?
Not bloody likely. I don't even live in this stinking country. I was staying with a friend, but she's a jerk.
Well, you can't fly right out of Equestria like this. Come on, you can stay at my place for the night. It's not far from here.
Sure. Whatever. Oh, my head.
The drinks here really have some kick, don't they? Lean on me. I'll get you where you need to go.
The cloaked figure paid for a Pegasus-drawn taxi. Gilda recalled swearing at them a few times before passing out and entering a dreamless sleep. Gilda opened her eyes to find herself in what looked like a partially underground basement. It was pleasant enough. Through the windows came warm sunlight and the faint smell of flowers. Distant bird songs could be heard, adding to the welcoming atmosphere of the room. It had some plush chairs at the small table, a partially finished jigsaw puzzle, an antique dollhouse, and the ring of metal in the ground that her neck was chained to. Groggily, Gilda pulled at the chain. Once, twice, and then the realization hit her.
Ah!
Gilda cried, freaking out. Her feathers stuck on end. She tried her best to pull herself free from the chain, but to no avail. She was well fastened. On top of that, she felt heavy. Her limbs felt like sandbags.
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. Oh, you're up at last.
Gilda looked up at the familiar voice as the pony came down the stairs. Anger boiled up inside her as the pony's revealed face struck a chord in her memory. Without alcohol and whatever drugs had been in her drink fogging her mind, she knew whom she had been playing pool with.
You're that pony from the market.
Hello, my name is Fluttershy. You're in my house. You should be more polite. I, don't like loud noises.
How dare the pony talk to her like that? Had this pony chained her up? Drugged her? Kidnapped her? How dare she? Whatever ridiculous pony prank this was, it had gone too far.
What are you doing with me? Let me go! You idiot! When I get my claws on you, I'm gonna...
I guess it's no food for today then.
Mumbled the yellow Pegasus, turning and walking back up the stairs. Gilda felt her stomach drop. A chill went through her as the situation was realized in her mind. She was trapped, and her captor seemed very casual about it. This wasn't a joke. Something was very, very wrong with this scenario, and its foreboding implications fired off in her head as she saw the pony shut the door.
Hey! Come back here!
It was no use. Gilda was left to spend the rest of the day alone, pulling at her restraints. And feeling increasingly out of her depth.
Fluttershy. Stupid, dumb pony.
Feeling better today?
Gilda opened her eyes to find Fluttershy already in the room, a tray next to her with a cup of water and a couple of apples.
What do you want from me?
Oh, you poor thing.
Fluttershy groaned.
You really wore yourself out, huh? Well, it's to do with you being a bully. You see, I can't have that. Society has too many already. Some pony needs to clean them up and make them realize what they're doing is wrong.
Fluttershy walked over to the blood-red gem in the wall opposite Gilda and tapped it. Gilda had never noticed it before. She had been so focused on the stairs, the chain, and the out-of-reach windows that everything had been ignored. The gem gave a soft hum and glowed a little, casting a crimson light over the pony.
The magic will find a way. Oh, it surely will. It'll just take some time.
And then started towards the stairs, kicking the tray so it slid over to Gilda as she passed. Gilda eyed the food suspiciously.
Oh, it's not poisoned. If I wanted to do that, I had done it with your drink. No, it's okay, my little one. I'll take good care of you. You're mine now. My responsibility. I'm good at taking care of my little ones. The magic will take effect given time. I'm sure it's already started. It usually has by now.
What do you mean?
Gilda began, but when she looked up from the tray, she saw Fluttershy's tail disappearing upstairs. She had clearly been talking while climbing.
Hey, wait!
The door shut firmly. Feeling sick and uneasy, Gilda avoided the food for hours. It wasn't until late that night, in a moment of weakness, that she gave in. She hadn't eaten since before Pinkie Pie's stupid party. How long ago was that? A day? 2 days? Long enough that Gilda's stomach hurt with emptiness. Gingerly, she ate the food Fluttershy had left. It tasted fine. Gilda woke to see Fluttershy talking to a rabbit. The bunny spotted that she was watching and ran off. The pony looked in her direction. Gilda blinked, her eyes hot and griffy. Her stomach hurt even more than before, despite the food she had eaten.
Awake at last! My, you're a lazy one.
Gilda groggily rolled onto her front. As she did, she felt something give. She looked down to her talons and screamed.
What's happening to me?
No need to be scared. That'll happen. It's perfectly normal.
Fluttershy peered over Gilda's shoulder as she stared anguish at her claws. Once they had been well kept and strong, but before her now was a tatty mess. One had come off altogether. The talon ended in a bloody stump.
Not to worry. You'll most likely be getting some new ones. You'll be much happier without those nasty, sharp things. Much less temptation to do bad things.
She sounded so reasonable, so calm. Gilda couldn't think straight. It was hard to breathe. She hadn't been sure what this was before, but now it was clear that this pony meant her actual harm. The food had been drugged, and when Gilda had slept, Fluttershy must have crept back into the basement and pulled out her claws. She hadn't even felt it. How far would this go? Panicked beyond reason, Gilda pressed her tattered talons together in plea.
Please, Fluttershy, stop this! Let me go! You have to let me go!
Why?
Because that's what you ponies always do! You forgive and forget and everyone goes home happy. You don't kidnap and torture each other.
But you're not one of us.
Fluttershy sounded so casual that Gilda wanted to scream.
Just because I'm a griffin doesn't mean you get to do this to me!
Oh, I didn't mean that. I meant that you're not one of us because you're a bully. Bullies always need to get their just desserts in Equestria, and that's how we maintain harmony. We punish evildoers and nasty creatures to find a way to make them not be nasty and evil anymore.
So you're going to torture me into being good?
I'm not torturing you, silly. I'm rehabilitating you. I couldn't just let you go free to keep being a bully. Not after how rude you were. And it wasn't just here either. You're a bully wherever you go. You lie and cheat and steal, and you keep getting away with it. You'll never learn the error of your ways until some pony teaches you. And that some pony, I guess, is me. And it seems that if I don't help you, you're destined to just stay a bully and a criminal, Gilda. But I know how to deal with that.
Fluttershy gazed off into space, her eyes glazing over with a peaceful look. Given what Gilda was going through now, she didn't trust that look.
I can change, I promise. Just let me go and I won't be mean. I won't tell anyone about you or what you've done here either.
That was a lie, of course. The second she got out of here, she was calling the cops. The Royal Guard, the Griffin Army, whoever had friggin' listened to her. She would see the psychotic Pegasus dragged off to jail if it was the last thing she did. Maybe she could even have her expedited to Griffinstone. They had the death penalty in Griffinstone.
Please, just...
Oh, I can't believe that. You're a liar, Gilda. You're lying to me now, aren't you? I can tell. It's far too late now anyway. the magic is taking effect. Just hush and I'll go get you some more food. Your body is working hard right now and it needs extra fuel.
Fluttershy trotted away and was soon back with another tray. She wouldn't reply to Gilda's pleas. She did wrinkle her nose in disgust when Gilda weakly tried to grab onto her leg and left bloody smears on her soft yellow fur. The mare shook herself free from Gilda's grasp and left the room. Gilda looked down. Her fur and feathers were falling out.
Ah! Fluttershy! Some pony! Any pony! Help me!
That night, Gilda wasted her anger and desperation on futile attempts to escape before finally crying herself to sleep. Gilda opened her eyes and saw white, fluffy white like clouds. At the back of her mind stirred the memory of where she was, what was happening, but she pushed it back. For a moment, she let herself dream. Imagine that what she was looking at was the vast skies as she soared above Equestria, watching them roll slowly in the wind currents that... Gilda's thoughts were shattered as she felt a chilling breeze hit her side and saw the fluffy clouds getting carried away, up into the air where there could be no doubt of what they were. A large brown cloud joined them as tears welled up in her eyes. She scrunched them shut, trying to put out of her mind the image of her feathers blowing away, to resist moving her limbs as she feared what she might feel, as if the breeze hadn't told her enough. Gilda's feathers were all gone. She sobbed, tears pouring down her bare cheeks.
All this fuss. At least you won't be the one tidying this up.
Gilda hadn't realized anyone else was in the room. With great difficulty, she turned to her captor, opening a small window. Fresh air waved into the room. Gilda's eyes widened. Fluttershy glanced back at Gilda and smiled, commenting idly as she finished with the window.
There's no point in leaving it closed now, after all. Best get those thoughts of your old life out of your head sooner rather than later.
What? What are you doing?
Gilda rasped, trying to catch her breath. Something was wrong with her voice. On top of this, she became aware of a horrible stench.
Doing? Well, I'm opening the Oh, to you? It's the magic, not me. But we're making you into something better. You'll see.
The pony lay down next to Gilda and stroked a hoof gently over her bald head. Gilda wanted to recoil as far back as the chain would let her, but she didn't have strength to do so. She barely had enough to wince away from the touch.
You're going to be so lovely,
murmured Fluttershy.
You'll see. Once this is over, you'll be so much better than you were.
Gilda shuddered, both from the chill and the feeling Fluttershy's words gave her. Fluttershy went about cleaning up the feathers and fur. Gilda forced herself to look at her body and choked back a sob as she saw that her fur was mostly gone too. Gilda's skin was becoming an ugly carnivorous of bumps and wrinkles. As for her glorious wings, they had been reduced to fleshy stumps that... she couldn't move. A new terror formed inside Gilda as she strained to look closer. Her wings were discolored, bruised, and in parts they were going gray. That smell. It was her wings. Were they rotted on her back? Gilda couldn't believe it and tried to touch them, to rub some feeling back into them, but her limbs would barely respond. Claws from her hind legs loosened in their holds and fell off as she tried to move. She felt sick, but her fear inside her gut pushed her to keep trying to help her wings. Keeping her legs as still as possible, Gilda rubbed her beak against her bare wings. The stench was almost unbearable, and she couldn't feel a thing. but she kept trying. Gilda had always loved her wings, her travel, her livelihood, her hobbies, all needed and all were enriched by those limbs. Even without feathers, Gilda still wanted to move them. Fluttershy tutted and went to fetch a mop. She brought back a bowl of water, too. Several animals had followed her down. Birds, rodents, a few others. They stayed back by the stairs, watching Gilda intently.
The next part will probably hurt, I'm afraid. But don't worry, it'll all be over soon.
Gilda glared at the pony, throat too dry to respond, but getting as much hatred as she could into her eyes to let Fluttershy know that, whatever was to come, no pain could compare to the rage she felt then. Gilda was wrong. Fluttershy said something about speeding up the process and about being around to clean up the mess, but Gilda couldn't believe that had anything to do with it. This pony was enjoying it.
Brace yourself now. You'll thank me for this later.
Fluttershy reached up and took a grip on one of Gilda's wings, ignoring her hoarse cries of complaint.
No, 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 no.
Gilda could barely move. She couldn't fight or escape. She could just watch in hatred and brace herself as she expected to see and feel her wing bones break. Gilda waited for the sharp twist or bite that would do it, but Fluttershy just pulled gently back at the wing and it went with her, tearing off from its roots. Gilda screamed, panicking, trying to grab her wing back, but her movements were sluggish, and then the wing was already gone. There was nothing Gilda could do. Even as she saw the last tendon snap, she could have sworn that she could still feel her wing's nerves, still trying to move it, even after the lifeless lump was dropped onto the floor, and the hateful pony moved on to the second one. The pain was sickening, and the sight more so. Gilda tried shutting her eyes as Fluttershy took the second wing in her mouth, but it couldn't block out the horrible pain, nor stop the cool air alerting Gilda to the exposed wound that remained. A strange, skittling noise caused Gilda to open her eyes, and she saw that her audience had joined in. The various animals that had followed the pony down rushed forward to grab what had once been hers. They picked at the wings, fighting over the chunks of discolored flesh as they were pulled from the bones. Gilda watched as her beloved wings were torn apart by little mouths.
No, 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 no!
Gilda passed out. Gilda wasn't sure how many days it was, but to her it felt unending. Only vaguely aware of the days and nights, she must have spent at least a week withering in pain, passing out only to be woken up by the same feeling. Gilda's limbs felt like they were being pulled apart at the bone, and her ribs hurt like nothing she'd ever felt before, like they were being torn open towards her spine. Gilda felt like the whole of her skeleton was on fire, threatening to burn her up and tear her into pieces. Worst was Gilda's head. When that started, it was as if her brain were expanding out, trying to burst free from her skull. At one point, Gilda heard singing. The tune was familiar.
Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, don't wish that you were dead.
Gilda wasn't sure how much it was just a hallucination, but the cold words haunted the few bizarre dreams she had, twisting them into nightmares. One day, Gilda woke up feeling numb.
I do wish the magic wouldn't be quite so, well, so messy. Magic is as magic does, I suppose, but you'd think it could do it with less chance of infection. Still, I don't think she'll have any scars.
Gilda's eyes were starting to focus now. Her beak was huge, towering up in front of her eyes. She couldn't even see the top. Slowly, Gilda turned her head and took in the sight of her body. She started to dry heave at the scene. Her body was gone, and a horrible lump of deformed flesh had replaced it. What was once her back was now horribly hunched. Her limbs were ugly, fleshy stumps, and her wings. The memories came flooding back, and she started to retch again, though nothing came up.
Oh, don't make such a fuss, silly girl. I gave you plenty of pain treatments, and besides, it's nearly over. Soon you'll be all better. I intend to give you some food soon. I hope you can keep it down.
Suddenly, Gilda realized how big the room was around her. Had she been moved in her pained state? Yet, it all looked so familiar. What was happening to her? Eventually, some sort of gruel was poured down her throat. Didn't sit well with her stomach, which hadn't had anything in it for a while, and it hurt. It hurt quite a lot. As the pain treatments began to wear off, it hurt a lot more. Sharp pains at first, but getting worse. Gilda cried out. It sounded like a croak.
Sorry, but you can't stay under all the time. It wouldn't be healthy.
With that, Fluttershy bid Gilda good night. Gilda tried to protest, but the words were no longer formed. Fluttershy turned off the light, and Gilda was left in the dark, alone, with the pain rapidly seeping back into her body. That pony kept talking as if this was necessary. But Gilda had been a bully long enough to recognize the signs. Fluttershy was enjoying this. For all her talk of righteousness and caring and all that other crap, she was a sadist on the inside. Worst of all, Gilda was Fluttershy's prisoner, and Fluttershy seemed happier about it by the day. It was as if a storm had passed. Gilda's body felt sore, but not burning pain. She had stared at the window from where she was. The sky was dimly lit. It was either very early or just after dusk. Gilda wondered which, staring at it and feeling more peaceful than she had since before she came to visit these cursed ponies. The sky was getting brighter. Dawn. Then, Gilda watched as the hours passed, and slowly the sky turned a pale blue, and birds began to sing.
Oh, you look so much better.
Gilda winced away from the voice, and the world went dark.
Oh, that's so cute. The magic picked such an adorable form for you. Yes, it did.
Gilda moved her neck forward a little, and found herself peeking out at the pony through a doorway of some sort.
Oh my, don't be scared. Look, doesn't this make you feel better?
Fluttershy was holding up a ring of the metal. It was attached to a chain that led to the floor. Gilda's eyes widened and she realized what it was. The metal collar. It was off. She was free. Gilda slowly moved back, intending to stubbily wiggle out of whatever had covered her head, but she was just moving backwards. Whatever it was attached. Some sort of new collar, perhaps? There was also something heavy attached to her body. She decided she could deal with that later. Wings or no wings, claws or no claws, it was now or never. Gilda pushed herself forward, her legs moving strangely, but moving her forward nonetheless. She was doing it. She reached the foot of the stairs and tried her best to get up, to get out, to escape this hellhole. It wasn't possible. From behind her, Gilda heard the pony's soft giggles.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. That's cruel. Naughty Fluttershy. Still, I guess it's time for you to go outside now. Let's get you moving, shall we?
Gilda was hoisted up the stairs and taken outside to a small enclosure where she was plopped down on the grass.
This is your new home, my little one. Oh, and I suppose you should see your new form, too. I'm so excited!
A picture of a reptile was put in front of Gilda. It took her a moment to realize that it was a mirror.
You're a tortoise now. Aren't you lovely? I suppose it's the magic's way of saying you need to slow down to enjoy life.
Gilda stared, unable to comprehend what was in front of her. Gilda was a griffin. How could Gilda look like this? What had happened? As if in answering to Gilda's thoughts, Fluttershy elaborated.
You see, some types just aren't good for society as they are. It's my job to help with that. I'm perfectly placed, you see. I tend to that helpful gem I showed you, and I look after those during mid-transformation. And in my return, society gets rid of its problems, and I get a nice little cottage and more animal friends.
Gilda couldn't tear her eyes away from the mirror. This was too unreal. This had to be some sort of horrible trick.
And we are friends now, aren't we? After all, you need me to understand and look after you. I don't get many visitors, so I'm all you've got. Well, I suppose you might get adopted, but you need some pony looking for a pet.
Gilda kept staring at the mirror. The pony patted Gilda on her head and flew away, leaving her an enclosed surrounding by small animals. Eventually, Gilda sought out a corner to lie down in, still in shock. It wasn't until later that night that it hit Gilda, and, tired from her transformation though she was, she sobbed as best she could in her new body. Were the other animals here like Gilda, or was she alone? Gilda couldn't tell, but she certainly felt alone. After the first couple of days, Fluttershy didn't even bother shutting the gate. Gilda didn't try to leave though. Where would Gilda have gone? Gilda didn't know how to get around without her flight, and she could no longer talk. Gilda was stuck. Stuck being pampered by her captor, who now seemed convinced that Gilda was grateful for Fluttershy. Gilda let Fluttershy believe that. But even so often, in her lowest points, Gilda caught a glint in Fluttershy's eye. Part of Gilda suspected that Fluttershy didn't know she still hated her, and Fluttershy enjoyed that. Enjoyment being all Gilda had whilst her new body kept her prisoner. Gilda needed a miracle.
Now, Rainbow, my dear, I cannot express my delight.
On that line, Gilda saw her childhood friend come back into her life. It was almost a year since Gilda had been trapped in this nightmare, and at first she had hidden her shell. Gilda was scared to be seen like this. Part of her was still angry, even, for in a way it had been Rainbow Dash's fault that Gilda ended up in that tavern all those months ago. Then, as Gilda listened, she realized why Rainbow was here. Rainbow was trying to adopt an animal. A way out of this garden of horrors had presented itself, and the path was clear. Gilda had to get Rainbow to choose her. Fluttershy was showing Rainbow a kitten. To Gilda's relief, Rainbow Dash said she'd pass. Gilda still had a chance. Gilda approached Rainbow as fast as she could. Gilda managed to reach Rainbow, to tap her on the leg, and Rainbow kicked her aside. Damn that pony. Gilda wasn't going to be put off, however. Fluttershy couldn't stop Gilda. Rainbow Dash and Gilda had been friends for years. No matter how their last encounter had gone, there had to still be a bond there. Rainbow Dash was obsessed over finding something awesome in flying. In some ways, it felt like she was describing the old Gilda. She felt a knot in her stomach as she remembered how she had once been. But she shook the thoughts out of her head and focused on the current situation. Gilda had to get noticed. Dash would help her. Dash would save her. She would find a way to fix all this. Gilda kept trying to no avail. But soon, the ponies had decided that a contest would be held. A contest for the flying animals. Fine. Gilda would enter. She had to. Gilda headed towards the event as quickly as she could when suddenly a gentle laugh rang out.
Oh, of course you want to try, sweetheart. She was your friend after all.
Gilda retreated into her shell, but was scooped up by Fluttershy.
It's okay, you can go.
Gilda could?
Don't look so surprised. We're friends now, aren't we? If you really want to race against flyers, then why not?
Gilda felt sure Fluttershy was plotting something, but she had her chance. That would do. Fluttershy set Gilda back up on her way. Up ahead, Gilda could see Rainbow Dash looking at the other candidates. Gilda still hadn't made it by the time Rainbow Dash started talking, so Fluttershy flew back over and moved her closer, speaking in a patronizing tone.
Now just pay attention and try your best.
Seriously, Fluttershy? The turtle?
Scoffed Dash.
What'd you bring that thing here for?
Technically, he's a tortoise.
Gilda was male now? Or was it just added humiliation?
And he's always dreamed of being some pony's pet.
Well, technically, Gilda most recently dreamed of escaping the horror of living with the creature responsible for robbing her of her true form, but close enough. For whatever delusional reason, it seemed that Fluttershy really would help Gilda with this. Gilda just had to make sure things went her way for once, not Fluttershy's.
He just wants a chance to compete. He won't get in your way. He won't even know he's here.
We'll see about that.
Gilda was ready to win back her friend and escape from the mad mare's clutches. Gilda stared at Dash intently, trying to make her understand.
Dash, it's me. It's Gilda. I'm the stupid tortoise. Can't you tell I'm not what I seem?
Rainbow stared back, then scowled.
No! Damn it, Dash!
Oh, just let him try.
There's no way he could possibly keep up.
Rainbow pushed Gilda onto her back.
Look at him!
Gilda rolled back again.
No, I'm not giving up.
It won't hurt to just let him try.
But
Just let him try.
Insisted Fluttershy, pushing Gilda up against her old friend's face. Dash angrily gave in and, after warning Gilda that it wasn't a game, turned back to the other animals. As if Gilda was the one needed telling that this wasn't a game. This wasn't a game. This was Gilda's chance.
now, these games...
Rainbow continued. What a dweeb. Rainbow showed off a little and then started the race. Gilda didn't do well, but then she knew she couldn't compete. Once upon a time, back when Gilda was whole, she had won by a long shot, but now Gilda had to rely on rekindling that spark of friendship between them, or have Dash work out who she was, though Gilda didn't hold up much hope for the latter. The next task was braveness, taking a cat's toy. Gilda retreated into her shell and slowly crept to behind the animal, then pushed its carrier over onto it. Too slow to succeed, but her shell took the blows no problem. Sadly, this show of courage and tact was ignored. What did a grounded griffin have to do to get noticed? Next, noises. Gilda tried to talk, to roar, to anything, but it just came out as croaks. Rainbow passed over Gilda without comment again, and Gilda didn't do much better on Rainbow's awesome test. Maybe Gilda should have spent more of her time trying to learn to do tricks with this ridiculous body. At least for the radical side, Gilda felt confident her shell could take most hits, and so Fluttershy helped Gilda set up a dangerous course to show off. Fluttershy kept talking to Gilda in that baby voice. Did Fluttershy think Gilda had lost her mind? No matter, however, for the course looked good. Finally, Gilda's chance came up. Dash was watching, and all Gilda had to do was jump onto the spring to... Gilda missed. The curtains drew. Gilda's childhood friend came to further berate her. Gilda kept staring into Rainbow Dash's eyes, hoping that she'd pick up on whatever body language kept allowing Fluttershy to understand Gilda. All that happened was that Rainbow told Gilda to go home and called her creepy. Well, maybe Gilda would be less creepy if she hadn't gone through a torturous experience. Maybe Gilda would be more herself if she was still a griffin and didn't need to get through Rainbow's thick skull that Gilda was in need of help. Still, Fluttershy helped Gilda over to the last part of the contest, which was another race. Of course. Gilda watched as Dash and the animal started off. Why couldn't the last part have been something that this useless body was good for? Gilda fell down the starter ledge for a rolling start, then stood and pushed herself as fast as she could go. Damn it, Dash! This is Gilda's chance! Gilda couldn't spend the rest of a ridiculously long life with this psychotic torturer. Gilda had to get out. Gilda needed a friend's help more than ever, and there was only one friend around these ridiculous creatures. There came a loud sound from up ahead. It was shortly followed by what sounded like melodrama. Dash had stopped flying. Turning the corner, Gilda saw why. Rainbow was trapped by a falling boulder and was needlessly worrying that she'd be stuck forever. Perfect. At last, Gilda had a chance to prove herself. If she saved Dash, her friend would have to recognize that she wasn't just some ordinary dumb tortoise. Before anyone else came to the rescue, Gilda dug a small hole under the boulder and, using all her strength, lifted it up enough to free Rainbow Dash's wing. Rainbow looked at Gilda with awe, like she had the first time she had seen Gilda fly at full speed all those years ago. At last, Gilda had Rainbow's attention again.
Forget what I said before. You are awesome!
Dash cried and hugged Gilda.
Yes, I am out of here.
Gilda had her friend back, and soon, with Dash's help, she would get her body back too. Together, they exited the gorge. Dash seemed well enough to walk, but Gilda knew she liked being lazy. Gilda would have done anything to ensure she won this contest. Dash's dweeby little friends and her torturer came rushing over to the finish line as they approached. One of them was a purple unicorn, and the white one was a hornhead too. 2 unicorns could surely counter the magic that had changed Gilda and put her back together again. Dash's friends were happy to see her, and the subject went back to her new pet. Dash told Gilda she owed her one, but then Fluttershy called her attention over to the falcon, the race's winner. The sleek bird flew up and landed on Dash's back. Gilda started to worry. Had Dash forgotten her already? The white unicorn took a photo, and the bright flash sent Gilda panicking back into her shell. The torture hadn't done wonders for her nerves. Thankfully, Dash came to comfort her.
Easy, fella. Nothing to be afraid of. The falcon sure does look cool. He's absolutely everything I wanted in a pet.
Yay?
Added Gilda's captor. Gilda mentally urged Dash to drop her stupid rules and choose her. Hadn't Gilda proven herself?
But I said whoever crosses the finish line with me gets to be my pet.
Or find a loophole that works too. Rainbow's pink friend excitedly confirmed that those were the rules.
And the only racer who crossed the finish line with me was the one who stopped to save me when I needed help. The tortoise!
Gilda had done it.
Spike, take a letter. Dear Princess Celestia, I used to think that the most important traits to look for in a pet, or any best friend...
Gilda felt a lump form in her throat as Rainbow said that. Best friend. Gilda was one of Rainbow Dash's best friends again. As Rainbow spoke, Gilda went for a rematch with the aggressive feline, this time succeeding in taking her toy by tricking her. It wasn't quite the same as stealing from the markets, but it felt good to show off. Dash and her friends were still talking, and now Gilda's friend added,
You can't stop that little guy. He's like a tank.
Rainbow, you didn't want a pet that could fly because it would keep you grounded and hold you back, remember?
Oh, but now Rainbow had Gilda, a disgusting creature. And once Rainbow found out who she was and what had happened, Fluttershy's whole world was going to fall apart. Maybe she'd meet a much bigger mare in prison. Maybe that much bigger mare would like Fluttershy. Maybe Fluttershy would find out what it was like for someone to hurt her while crooning sweet names in her ear. The thought made Gilda smile.
Oh, I've got an idea. Come on, Tank.
Dash and Gilda headed off towards town. Gilda glanced back to see Fluttershy watching in surprise. She didn't look as worried or angry as Gilda expected, but that didn't matter. Gilda had her freedom, and soon she'd get her revenge. Eventually, the others were out of sight. The day was cloudy, but warm, and the air smelt sweet. It reminded Gilda of the first time she had come to Ponyville. That day, Gilda had been so excited to spend time with her old friend. Even though Gilda was now twisted out of shape, she couldn't help but feel the same. Gilda had her back. Some of the damage of Gilda's visit was repaired. Now, all Gilda had to do was find a way to communicate with Rainbow.
Hey, that's you, isn't it, Gilda?
Gilda stopped cold. Rainbow knew who she was? She recognized her? Gilda happily croaked as she looked up at Rainbow.
Yeah, I knew Fluttershy probably had you, but that stuff kind of freaks me out. And I was still kind of angry about our argument.
What?
Still, I'm sorry I didn't visit, but you understand, right?
Rainbow had known what was happening to Gilda.
Hey, who would have thought you would be a tortoise though, right? Yeah, it's not funny.
Rainbow had known? Apparently, some of Gilda's incredulous feelings had come through in her lizard-lined face.
Come on, don't look at me like that. I wouldn't have been allowed to interfere anyway. It's pony law that non-ponies caught breaking certain rules are put forward for transformation rehabilitation or whatever they're calling it now. Even Princess Celestia supports it. It's only secret from non-ponies, and it keeps the peace between nations. It's necessary. I mean, it's kinda creepy to me, but Fluttershy says it isn't so bad, and hey, it's better than prison, right? 'Cause you can still go outside and stuff?
Gilda would have glared, but she was too shocked. This cruel punishment wasn't unusual.
I mean, sure, it's kinda rough, what with being permanent. But you're my pet now. We're gonna have a lot of fun. There are these magical propellers that some Pegasi ponies use for decorating, and I bet we can fix you up with one of those, and you'll be flying about in no time.
Gilda was still trapped. She was always going to be trapped. The whole world was her prison now.
Come on, Tank! We're gonna be late for our very first pony pet playdate.
It's so much harder to think than it used to be. Movements slower. Feel kinda better, though.
Tank! Move it or lose it, buddy!
Dash. Follow. Dash. This good. I'm with friend. At last. Friend.